The lie sounded almost convincing until the room went quiet. She was crying, swearing, holding my hands like they were the last solid things in her world. And for one suspended second, I wanted to believe her more than I wanted the truth. It was a Tuesday night, ordinary in the way life usually is right before it splits open. The kind of night where the dishwasher hummed, the dog slept between us on the couch, and the TV played something neither of us was really watching. I remember thinking how tired she looked. Not stressed, just distant, like someone already halfway gone. I hadn't planned to confront her. That part matters. I didn't wake up angry or rehearsed or ready. I just asked a question that slipped out of me the way truth sometimes does when it's been held too long. Are you happy? She blinked like I'd snapped my fingers in front of her face. Smiled too fast. Said yes. Then added my name at the end, the way people do when they're trying to sound sincere. We'd been married 11 years. Long enough to know each other's rhythms. Long enough to notice when a smile lands a second too late. I told her I felt something was off. I didn't accuse. I didn't raise my voice. I said it the way you tell someone the weather's changing, like an observation, not a threat. She laughed softly and told me I was imagining things. Work stress, hormones, life. All the usual explanations that sound reasonable until they're stacked together like excuses pretending to be logic. But I didn't back down. I said I felt lonely with her. That part made her eyes flash, just for a moment. Then they filled with tears so quickly, it was almost impressive. She stood up, paced the room, pressed her palms to her face. When she turned back to me, she was crying in that quiet, controlled way that feels rehearsed from years of practice. She knelt in front of me, took my hands again. I swear, she said, voice breaking just right, there's no one else. I searched her face the way you search for your keys when you already know they're lost. I looked for cracks, for guilt, for relief, anything that felt real. And there it was, that old reflex to protect her. To believe her because believing her was easier than rewriting our entire history. I thought about the early years. Our tiny apartment. Eating dinner on the floor because we didn't own a table yet. The nights we stayed up talking about everything and nothing, convinced we were different from all the couples who failed. I remembered promising her I'd always listen, even when it was uncomfortable. So I listened. She told me I was her home, that I was the only man she'd ever loved, that she couldn't imagine her life without me. Each sentence landed softly, like a pillow meant to smother doubt rather than kill it. I nodded. I squeezed her hands. I even apologized for being distant, for working too much, for not noticing how overwhelmed she'd been. I owned my share because I believed marriage was about honesty, even when it hurt. She leaned her forehead against my knee and sobbed, relief pouring out of her like confession without sin. And that's when the sound cut through the room. A vibration. Sharp. Insistent. Her phone. It was on the coffee table, face down. We both looked at it at the same time, like it had made a decision for us. She froze. Completely still. Even her breathing stopped. The screen lit up. I didn't move. I didn't reach for it. I just watched as color drained from her face in real time, as if whatever name was glowing there carried more weight than all the vows we'd ever made. She whispered my name again, but this time it sounded like a warning. I hadn't seen the screen yet, but I knew, before I ever read a single word, that something in our marriage had just crossed a line it could never come back from. I reached for the phone before she could. Not fast, not angry, just steady, like my body already knew this moment was inevitable. She lunged anyway. Too late. The name filled the screen in bright, undeniable letters. A man's name I didn't recognize. No nickname. No emoji. Just a first name, clean and confident, as if it belonged there. As if it had every right to interrupt our marriage at 10:30 on a Tuesday night. Her sobbing stopped instantly. That silence, abrupt, panicked, told me more than any explanation ever could. I didn't answer the call. I didn't need to. The damage was already done. I set the phone back on the table, screen still glowing between us like a flare fired into the dark. She kept shaking her head, over and over. Please, she said. It's not what you think. I almost smiled at that. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. Those words don't come from innocence. They come from rehearsal. I asked her who he was. She hesitated. Just a beat. But in a marriage, a single beat can echo like thunder. A coworker, she said finally. He's been having a hard time. I was just helping. Helping. The words sat between us, fragile and absurd. I asked why his call came now. Why it came right after she swore there was no one else. Why her hands were trembling like she'd just dropped something irreplaceable. She stood up, pacing again, running both hands through her hair the way she did when she wanted control back. I stayed seated. I wanted her to feel the imbalance. I wanted her to feel how far she'd already stepped away from me. She started talking fast then. Too fast. Stories overlapping each other. Office stress. Long hours. Emotional support that went too far, but not like that. Every sentence carefully shaped to stop just short of the truth. I listened. I really did. Not because I believed her, but because I wanted to remember this version of her. The one who thought words could still save her. I asked if she'd ever met him outside of work. No. If she'd deleted messages. No. If she'd lied to me before. That one took longer. She sat down across from me, eyes red, voice softening again. I didn't want to hurt you. There it was. The justification dressed up as concern. I told her something then. I told her I could survive pain. What I couldn't survive was being treated like I was too fragile for the truth. She nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks, reaching for my hand again. I didn't pull away. That seemed to confuse her. I asked her to unlock her phone. The room changed. You could feel it. Like oxygen leaving. She said she felt violated. I said marriage didn't work that way. She said trust mattered. I said so did honesty. Back and forth, two people arguing from completely different realities. Finally, with a defeated exhale, she unlocked it and slid it across the table. I didn't rush. I didn't scroll right away. I just looked at her. At the woman I'd built a life with. The woman who used to tell me everything. Until she didn't. When I finally picked up the phone, I didn't know what I was hoping to find. Proof? Relief? A reason to forgive? What I found instead was something quieter. More devastating. Not passion. Not recklessness. Intimacy. Long conversations. Inside jokes. Shared frustrations. Messages sent late at night when she'd told me she was too tired to talk. Pieces of herself she no longer brought home. I stopped reading after a while. There was no need to keep cutting. I placed the phone back down. She was crying again, but this time it sounded different. Less performative. More afraid. I swear, she said again, voice cracking. I never meant for this to happen. I looked at her and realized something that hurt more than the messages ever could. She meant for something to happen. She just hadn't planned on being caught. And as I sat there, staring at the life we'd been building for over a decade, one thought kept circling in my mind. Slow, relentless, impossible to ignore. This wasn't the moment everything broke. This was just the moment I finally saw the cracks. We didn't sleep that night. Not really. We existed in the same house like two strangers waiting for morning to decide who they were going to be. She sat curled up on one end of the couch, arms wrapped around herself, eyes swollen and red. I stayed at the kitchen table, staring at a cold cup of coffee I didn't remember pouring. Every so often she would start to speak, stop, wipe her face, and start again. Like she was afraid that if she chose the wrong words, something irreversible would happen. The truth was, something already had. Around 3 in the morning, she told me everything she thought might soften the blow. How it started innocently. How she felt unseen. How he listened. How she never meant for it to become this. Each sentence leaned heavily on intention, as if intention mattered more than impact. I asked her a question that surprised even me. If I hadn't asked tonight, how long would this have gone on? She didn't answer right away. She looked down at the floor, tracing a crack in the wood with her toe. That silence stretched until it hurt. I don't know, she finally whispered. That was worse than any confession. At some point, the sky outside began to lighten. Morning doesn't care about your life falling apart. It shows up anyway. The dog woke up, stretched, wagged his tail like nothing in the world had changed. She watched him for a long time, tears sliding down her face, and said, I don't want to lose you. I believed her. That was the cruelest part. I believed she didn't want to lose me. I just didn't believe she knew how to choose me. I told her I needed space. Not a dramatic declaration. Not a threat. Just the truth. I packed a bag with shaking hands while she stood in the doorway, apologizing between sobs, promising therapy, transparency, anything. Every promise came too late, stacked on top of a lie that was still warm. Before I left, she asked if I hated her. I told her no, and that answer confused her more than anger ever could. The days that followed blurred together. I stayed with a friend who asked too many careful questions and avoided my eyes when I didn't answer. I replayed moments from our marriage like evidence I'd missed. Late nights. Changed passwords. The way she'd tilt her phone away without realizing it. All the signs that only make sense in hindsight. She texted constantly. Updates. Apologies. Reassurances. She sent photos of the house, the dog, our life frozen in place, like proof it was still waiting for me to come back. Then, 3 days later, my phone rang. Her name lit up the screen. I hesitated before answering, heart pounding in a way that felt unfamiliar and unwelcome. When I picked up, she was crying again, but this time there was something else underneath it. Panic. Raw and unfiltered. He won't stop calling, she said. I told him it was over. I told him you know. I didn't respond. I swear, she rushed on. I chose you. I blocked him. I did everything you asked. And that's when I realized something quietly devastating. She was still reacting, still scrambling, still letting another man dictate the emotional temperature of our marriage. I hung up after telling her I needed more time. That night, lying on a mattress that wasn't mine, staring at a ceiling I didn't recognize, I understood the real cost of betrayal. It wasn't the messages, or the lies, or even the other man. It was the way trust doesn't shatter loudly. It erodes, grain by grain, until one day, you look at the person you love and realize you don't know where the ground beneath you ends anymore. And the scariest part wasn't deciding whether I could forgive her. It was realizing I wasn't sure I could ever feel safe believing her again. I came home a week later. Not because everything was fixed. Not because forgiveness had magically arrived. I came home because running wasn't clarity. It was just distance pretending to be progress. She was sitting at the kitchen table when I walked in, hands folded, like she'd been waiting in that exact position the whole time. No makeup, no performance, just exhaustion. The house smelled the same, familiar in a way that hurt. We talked for hours, not arguing, not crying much either. Just two people finally stripped of illusion. She admitted what I'd already pieced together, that it had crossed lines she never thought she'd cross, that she liked the way he made her feel wanted without responsibility, desired without consequence. She said it quietly, like a confession to herself more than to me. I told her the truth in return. I told her that what hurt most wasn't the fear of losing her. It was realizing she'd already learned how to live without me while I was still choosing her every day. She nodded. No defense this time. We tried counseling. We tried schedules, transparency, shared calendars, open phones. She did everything right. And I don't say that sarcastically. She showed up. She owned it. She fought for us. But something fundamental had shifted in me. Trust isn't a switch you flip back on. It's a muscle. And mine had atrophied. Months passed. We laughed sometimes. Even meant it. Other times I'd catch myself watching her. Really watching her. Waiting for a sign that the ground was about to disappear again. That's not love. That's vigilance. And it's exhausting. One night, long after the house had gone quiet, I realized the truth I'd been avoiding. I didn't hate her. I just couldn't unknow what I knew. So I told her, gently, honestly, with sadness instead of anger. We cried together, the kind of crying that doesn't ask for forgiveness anymore, just understanding. We separated a few weeks later. No explosions, no villains, just two people acknowledging that love alone doesn't undo betrayal. Sometimes I still think about that night. About her crying, swearing there was no one else. About the phone lighting up at the exact moment the lie collapsed under its own weight. I've learned something since then. The most dangerous lies aren't told to hurt you. They're told to protect a version of life that can't survive the truth. And healing didn't come from winning, or leaving, or staying. It came from choosing myself, quietly, finally, after years of choosing us.